All right, everybody, it's Jeff Watts here from Watts Atelier of the Arts out here in Encinitas, California. And this fall, I will be bringing to you a very compelling and intense, but fun, workshop on portraiture. And I will be covering 3 basic palettes: painting from the Asara head, painting from the skull, painting from life, painting gesture from life, and master studies. I am going to be going through some of my portrait paintings today, a variety of different subjects, different time lengths, showing you a little bit about one of my favorite, most passionate areas of art, which is the art of portraiture. And so for me, the art of portraiture encompasses so many different aspects of training, learning. It could be monochromatic, or these, like, for example, what we have up here are these gesture paintings. And this is one of my favorites, and I'll be covering this in my upcoming workshop. But this is an example of 3 palettes, right? So when I teach this class, I go through the monochromatic palette, I go through the Zorn palette, actually the Zorn palette down here, and then I go through the warm cool palette up here. So that's 3 palettes that you should master, in my opinion. So this is a cool little example of that. Sometimes I'll compose them like that in a full page. Other times I'll do them like this, little tiny ones, right? Little 5x7. This is the Zorn palette. So that's a beautiful little example. These are about 40-minute paintings. So think about that. It's like sprint training for portraiture. Okay. And then this is a little Zorn palette as well. So nice example, very tiled, very direct. Can't get in too much trouble with this palette. It's a very limited palette, 4 colors. Beautiful palette though, one that you should definitely spend some time on. And actually this is the more basic palette, which is a monochrome, right? And when we talk about monochromes, they can be really small like that. You know, they can be really beautiful. You're working with value control, you're working with edge manipulation, learning how to push paint and get all the benefits of wet into wet painting, which oil painting's so good at, but without the added necessary issues with color, right? So you don't end up having to use so much bandwidth. You can focus on edges, focus on values. If the edges and values are good, any amount of, there's all kinds of color combinations that may be as good or better than what you're seeing. So we need to get this down first. So this is a beautiful thing we'll be going over as well. And let me see if there's any more examples. A couple more examples of the monochromes, might as well put them up there. Just they're really fun to look at. And they're also very tiley, you notice, like very shape driven. Because when you're putting down information that quickly from a live model, there's nothing more difficult, but also rewarding, also incredibly good for your efficiency of thought process and how you learn to manipulate paint and not be so literal with the model. This is one time that I let the drawing go a little bit. I'm not so focused on things like likeness, right? Because likeness takes time. When you take time away, something's going to be sacrificed. So I always tell my students, when you come in, think about what frame of mind you're in, right? We also have usually 3 paintings per class. It's 1 an hour. And so I would start with burr number. See how you're doing. If you're feeling like that's challenging, stay in burr number the whole class. If it feels like you're doing pretty good, then go to the Zorn for the second one. And then the third one, we usually have a little extra time on, maybe 10 minutes extra, maybe 60 minutes instead of 40. And that would be the one you would want to open up to a full warm, cool palette and then give it your best shot. I mean, all of you want to give your best shot, but really these are like, again, sprint training for the portrait artist. Love doing it. Great. Had incredible success teaching color through that as well. So color is one of the harder things to teach. Then once we get past that, oh, well, one other thing I wanted to show actually are a few gestures that have full color. So when you get into full color, you'll get into the really saturated greens, you'll get into these teals, you'll get into purples and all these beautiful harmonies. And sometimes even dual lighting, rim lighting, various lighting. So we have a whole gesture class around lighting scenarios as well. So we're gonna go to the next one we're gonna go to is, what do you do? Well, we go into 3-hour portrait, which I still consider gesture, right? And until you get up to like 6 hours, 9 hours, 12 hours, 20 hours, those become studio paintings. And we won't be dealing with as much of that in the actual workshop because we just don't have time to sit and do a 20-hour, 30-hour. It would have to be a whole workshop on one painting. But these are like little 2-hour paintings, right? 2.5, because it's a 3-hour class, but we have model breaks. So this is a perfect example of something I would say I was very proud of. Obviously, I made it into a frame. These are some of my favorite little paintings. They're very, I don't know whether they're gestures or whether they're 3 hours, 2 hours. I've put so many of those in galleries over the years, sold so many of them in galleries over the years. So these are legit, you know, these are not, but this is where you learn your craft. You go in there, look at the broken color on this gentleman's face, the gray greens, the purples, the mauves. Beautiful little painting, really fun skin tone to work with. You can do all kinds of embellishment, manipulation, idealization, but the values hold together, right? And if the values hold together through monochrome, learning it through monochrome, you can then open up color with not much effort, and it's a lot easier. So trust me on that one. So we'll be walking through all three of those palettes, and the fourth palette, uncontrolled palette, we'll talk a little bit about that one as well. So good stuff. Okay, then once we get, so these are all going to be examples of 3 hours, right? 2.5, right? So that's getting in, you're moving fast, you're moving efficiently, it's still gesture. The likeness starts to come into play a little bit in 3 hours though. I start opening up and try to get a likeness. Sometimes I'm really ripping and I'm doing great and I'm moving fast and I can do one like that in 3 hours, which is a lot, right? And I think that was a demonstration for one of our classes. Usually at the beginning of the term, I'll come in and I like to walk my talk. I like to prove that I am worthy of you being in my classes and paying good money and time to be there. So I'm going to lead by example, always. You're always going to have me working on your paintings, working in front of you. And all too often in a lot of workshops, I see people not doing that. Especially really good artists because they're afraid you're going to sell the painting after. I mean, just ridiculous stuff, right? But I will get on there and I will hammer out paintings for sure. So that's a good example of a 3 hour. Some other ones that are 3 hours. Are really nice. And there's a lot of vignetting involved in this. And vignetting is a term in art that we use referring to prematurely ending a painting in an attractive manner. Okay. Now that could be anything. But here we got some drapery. We've got some splashes, some drips. We've got some chaos up in there, a little bit here and there to balance that beautifully rendered head. And it's just a great way to do portraiture from life or even for studio paintings because when you paint out to the edges, it can also look very claustrophobic. It feels like everything's kind of crunching in on the painting. I like some breathing room and vignetting is a great way to do that. So we'll talk about that in the workshop also, vignetting and the power of it and the legitimacy of it, right? So that's another good vignette, right? It's got a little bit of palette knife work in here. This one has a little bit more of that kind of Fetchny Schmid kind of look, Richard Schmid. It's a little bit, a little more painterly than Schmidt would be. But in his early years, he did a lot of stuff like that. But this has just got a nice vignette. Look at this little Sumi brush inking, flare of the brush at the bottom that just feels so unpretentious and so relaxed, right? It's all about learning control so that you can be relaxed. Learning control so that you can be spontaneous. So it's kind of an oxymoron, but it's spontaneous carefulness. Or, it's like there's these two things that don't really go together because usually spontaneity has to do with just unbridled feminine energy, just approaching it, right? But the structure comes from the masculine. The structure comes in, and that's where we put both chaos and structure together to get beautiful paintings. And you want that combination. So we're going to talk about those concepts, get a little bit, not too esoteric, but a little bit out there into this idea that the masculine is very structured, it's very intellectual, it's very problem solving, and the feminine is very unbridled, flowing, energetic, splashes of color, wild brushmanship. We want all those things working in a painting, but if we get too far on either side, we're going to get in trouble. So perfect balance. Something I like is photo work, right? Painting from photos and in monochrome or in color or whatever, but this is a good example of a photo rendition painting, right? Where we're taking a photo and we're learning how to interpret it in paint. That's another great thing to do when you don't have access to models. Maybe you live somewhere where you don't have a school handy and you need to work from photo reference. But luckily the internet has amazing resources to work from now. So you can just go on there, go on Pinterest, grab a bunch of images, print them out, or put them on your iPad or whatever you have, and go ahead and do a painting. But this is a controlled monochrome from a photo. We will talk about that in the workshop. Also, just another painting to look at is skulls. Want to learn how to paint the skull really well if you're going to be a great portrait painter. We need to know the planes, we need to know the rhythms, and we need to know the skull. Those are our three canons of pillars of knowledge for successful portrait painting, in my opinion. And then, of course, we have the palettes that go along with. So whether we're using this for monochrome or we're painting it in color or Zorn, I figure skulls are so monochrome anyway, might as well do it in burnt umber. But you could also, we're going to talk about this little bugger, the Osaro head, right? Everybody's bane of their portrait existence is painting this guy. But it's great. It's where we melt together the muscles and the skull, and we get the planes. And the planes change value as they turn away from light, right? So this is just a nice example. It's not going to be a sexy painting. It's not going to be one of those ones that's got that joie de vivre in it. It's going to be a technical exercise in understanding planes. But we got to go through the technical to get to the magical, right? We can't have one without the other. And that's where, again, the masculine and feminine come in, and they go together. And I'm not talking about this from gender standpoint. I'm talking energetics. I'm talking frequency. So energetically, just think about that. And think about what both of those sides of the coin embody, and how can we get that into our paintings to make truly impactful paintings that are not only accurate, but are inspirational at the same time. That is the key to me to great portraiture. And that's why I love doing what we're going to go to next, which is master studies, right? Now, our master study is where we delve into an artist that we like, and we want to learn from them, but maybe they're dead. Maybe they're no longer here, or we can't have access to them. So what do? We take one of their paintings and we reverse engineer it with one of the palettes that we talked about. It could be the Zorn, it could be a monochrome study, it could be color. I've done hundreds of these over the years, and they are one of the best ways to train, to learn brushmanship. That means brushmanship is like your handwriting in paint. So think of it that way. When someone says you have amazing brushmanship, it basically is like you have amazing penmanship. You're a very calligraphic, beautiful style of writing. Well, we're writing in paint, and we're doing it with masses, and we're doing it with edges, and we're doing it with values, and we're doing it with color, right? So these are the areas that we need to understand, and we need to get really intimately involved with it, right? I mean, So that's a me in situ study. Here's a Nikolai Fechin, one of my favorites. Now, this guy just embodies soulfulness, right? He is a guttural painter. He is a strong Russian painter with that kind of really bravura brushwork, the strong color, the broken color. One of my faves, done so many studies of his, and very influential on my style of painting. Here's another Fechin, right? Which is, again, very expressive. This old Mongolian individual with a pipe, beautiful hand gesture, lots of cool color notes. Last one I'll put up, well, this is, I think, a Fontaine-Latour, and that's one that's an unusual one for me, but I like to show my range too, and I want to learn all kinds of ranges of masters, right? So I've done tons of Sargents, Soroyas, Zorns, Duveneck. This is an outlier, right? This is not one that I would normally say, I'm going to go do, but I love this painting. I love the moodiness of it. I love it's just got a beautiful antiqued, sweet view to it. I love it. Simple painting, but super powerful. And that was one. All these were demonstrations for my class. They were all done in 3 hours in front of people while talking, not to impress you, but to impress upon you the importance of how technically well trained you need to be in order to go out and do portraiture for a living, if that's what you're interested in. It may be something as simple as coming to that workshop to learn how to get some skills to paint a beautiful painting of someone you love, your grandmother, your deceased grandmother maybe, or your mom, or a loved one, okay? But that's what we're gonna be talking about. What do we do with portraiture once we're really good? How do we bring that to the masses? And it's been a beautiful area of study for so many of the masters, right, over the years. Rembrandt, I'll dive into anybody who I look at their work and I say, I wanna get some of that flavor, that feel, that nuance into my work. Well, how do I do that? I can't do it by reading a book on them. I can't do it by just staring at their paintings. I mean, that's not going to work. So I have to sit mano a mano, me and the canvas and a palette, and I need to reverse engineer and execute that piece to look like they could have done it. Now, I'm not trying to make a forgery on these. I'm not trying to go in and forge a painting. I'm trying to get the mood and emotional feel of that particular painter. It could be the color feel, it could be the edge feel, it could be their composition, it could be any number of things. And you can do master studies in all areas, but we're talking about portraiture here right now. So this is a very big part of the atelier. It's a part of when I do workshops, I always introduce it for one evening or one day where I do a demo and then the students come in and do their own. And I help them with it. I assist them. I show them how to do one of those, how to approach it. So these are all examples of my portraiture. Finished. Now we're not going to do finishes in the workshop, but I will bring in some of my finishes to show you where this is all heading. But this would be a good example of a studio portrait. And so what is a studio portrait? A studio portrait is a portrait where we maybe do a photo shoot and we come into the studio and we spend something like 15, 20, 30 hours building up the painting, finessing the edges, working different layering, allowing certain aspects of the paint to dry or set up almost dry to where we can go in and get certain effects with the paint that we really can't get from a life painting. Because life paintings are just, they're fast, they're spontaneous, they're gonna have that joie de vivre, that soulfulness to them. We wanna bring that soulfulness from the gestures, from the 3-hour paintings, back into our studio paintings so that they don't become uptight, constipated. Ugh. You know, we want them to be full of life. So we bring that life work into our studio work in order to get that sweet balance. Because when the model's not there, they're not moving, you can just work from it for a copious amount of time. The chances of you beating that thing to death are pretty high, right? I mean, that's why you see just a lot of studio paintings that don't have that flair that a life painting has. So we do the gestures, we do these quicker efforts so that we can do these and still have a beautiful balance of everything in them. This is where you pull out the stops and you really go for it. These are the competition paintings. These are paintings that go into gallery shows. These are paintings that are like, you know, you're playing in the actual game, right? It's not a training session. The other ones are like going to the gym and getting a really wonderful workout in with a good trainer, but then you got to go to the game and perform. And when you go to the game to perform, you want all that work that you did, all that studying, all that systematic execution and studying in school to pay off. Right? That's where you're playing the game, right? So that's how I think about it because I come from an athletic background. So I'm very, very geared towards, goals and goal setting and training and training for what? Training for the big game, the big race, the big this, the big that. And trying to, again, so with that kind of mentality, you can see how I train. I cross-train just like in athletics, so I don't hurt myself in athletics. You're not going to hurt yourself in painting, but you cross-train so that you don't burn out. You cross-train so that you have a wider range of ability in your articulation of your brushstrokes and your ability to perceive. Like gesture forces absolute efficiency. And that efficiency in a long painting is crucial. I mean, it's beautiful. And it keeps your hand tuned, so you pull those one-time strokes. So anyway, thank you for joining me for this little walkthrough of some of my portraits and portraiture I've done over the years. I have crates full of those gestures. I've done thousands of them. And I don't think that's not much of an exaggeration. But anyway, if you feel compelled, come out to the workshop. I think you'll have a great time. We're going to cover a lot of these different subjects with the exception of this last one, but I will show you where we're heading with some of that. Okay? Have a good one. Hope to see you in the fall. Cheers.